The Saloon Secret, a dark tale of Wild West. The sun was low when Elias Mercer saw the town. It should not have been there. All day he had ridden through a stretch of land that looked the same in every direction. Dry brush, pale sand, a few tired rocks that offered no shade. The air shimmered with heat even as evening came. His canteen was light. His horse, Ash, moved slower than usual, ears twitching at every sound that wasn't there. Elias had heard stories on the road. People talked when they thought the world was too big and too quiet. They talked about a place called Red Hollow. Some said it was a ghost town. Some said it was a trick of the desert. One man swore it showed up only when you needed it most, like the desert itself was testing you. Elias never trusted road stories, but he trusted his eyes. A line of buildings rose from the dust ahead, dark shapes against the orange sky. A water tower, a few wooden roofs, a street that cut straight through the center like a scar. A saloon sign swinging slowly, though there was hardly any wind. Ash slowed on his own, hooves careful. Elias rested a hand on the saddle horn and leaned forward, studying the place. The town looked old, but not abandoned. He could see lamps in windows, not the warm flicker of oil flames, but a steady glow, calm and pale, like moonlight caught in glass. That was strange. Out here people used lanterns. They used fire and oil and matches. They used what they could carry. A steady glow without flame meant someone had money or someone had a secret. Elias rode in. The main street was quiet but not empty. A man sat on a bench outside a general store, boots crossed, hat low. A woman carried a basket from a side alley, moving as if she knew exactly where to step. Two kids played marbles near a hitching post, their laughter soft and careful, like they didn't want to wake something. Everyone watched Elias, not with fear, not with anger, with a kind of tired interest, like they had seen strangers before and knew what strangers usually brought: questions, trouble, or both. Elias dismounted near the saloon. The sign above the doors read, "The Copper Star." The letters were faded, but the wood looked strong, too strong for its age. The boards didn't bow. The nails didn't rust. Even the swinging sign moved as if it followed a rhythm only it could hear. He tied Ash to the post and checked the knot twice. Then he touched the saloon doors. They were not as rough as he expected. The wood felt smooth, almost polished, like hands had rubbed it clean for many years. He pushed inside. The air changed at once. It was cooler, for one thing. Not cold, but steady, like the heat outside couldn't cross the doorway. The smell was familiar: dust, old wood, and something like coffee, but there was also a faint metal scent, like pennies warmed in the sun. The room was full. Men and women sat at tables, some with drinks, some with plates. They spoke in low voices. A few looked up at Elias, then back to their own business. The sound of a piano drifted through the room, slow and smooth. Elias paused. The piano was in the corner. No one sat at it. The keys moved, not fast, not wild, just enough to play the tune, as if invisible hands pressed them down. Elias blinked, waiting for a trick to show itself. Sometimes, in richer towns, a player could hide behind a false wall. Sometimes a child could be crouched under the bench. But this piano had no cover, no shadow hiding anything. The notes floated out into the air like they belonged there. He forced himself to keep walking. Behind the bar stood an older man with gray hair and a neat mustache. He cleaned a glass that looked already clean. His eyes were sharp but not unkind. When Elias approached, the man set the glass down gently, as if sound mattered. "You're new," the man said. "That's right," Elias answered. His voice sounded too loud in his own ears. He lowered it. "Just passing through. Looking for water, a meal, maybe a place to rest." The man studied him for a moment, eyes moving from Elias' face to his hands like he was checking for calluses and oil stains. Elias knew what he saw: a drifter's clothes, sun-worn and patched. A belt with tools instead of a gun, a man who fixed things because he had to. "You can get all three," the man said, "if you mind your manners." "I can do that," the man nodded once. "Name S. Silas Crow. I run this place. What do they call you?" "Elias Mercer." Silas poured water into a tin cup and pushed it across. Elias drank slow. It tasted clean, almost sweet, as if it came from deep earth, not a surface well. Silas watched him drink. "You came in near sunset." "I didn't plan it." "Nobody does," Silas said, and his voice carried a simple truth that made Elias' neck prickle. Elias set the cup down. "What is this place?" Silas leaned forward a little. "It's a town." "I've seen towns," Elias said. "This one feels wrong." Silas did not seem offended. He just looked tired. "That's because you're listening." Before Elias could ask what that meant, a woman stepped up beside him. She was younger than Sela's, maybe late 20s, with dark hair pinned back. Her eyes were clear and steady. She wore a plain dress, but she carried herself like someone who didn't need fancy things to be important. "You're thirsty," she said, not as a question. "I was," Elias replied. She glanced at his belt. "You fix things?" "Sometimes," he said, "if they can be fixed." The woman's mouth tightened, like she wanted to smile but decided not to. "Most things can be fixed. People just get scared when they don't understand them." Silas cleared his throat. "This is Mara Vance," he said. "She keeps the books, keeps the town from falling apart." Mara looked past Elias toward the door, toward the fading light outside. "You should eat before night fully settles." Elias followed her gaze. Through the saloon windows he could see the sky turning purple. The shadows in the street stretched long. The lamps outside glowed brighter now, steady and pale, not flickering at all. "What happens after it settles?" Elias asked. Silas's eyes held his. "You'll see." That answer didn't help, but Elias was too tired to argue. Silas served him a bowl of stew and a piece of bread. The stew was simple: beans, dried meat, onions, but it was warm and filling. Elias ate slowly, listening to the room. The talk around him was normal enough. People spoke of broken wagon wheels, missing cattle, dry wells, small worries. But their words had a careful edge, as if everyone was avoiding one subject that sat heavy in the center of the room. Elias noticed small things. No one spoke loudly. No one laughed too hard. The piano played without a player, and no one looked at it. The lamps shone without flame, and no one mentioned it. A mirror behind the bar reflected the room, but the reflection seemed slightly delayed, like it breathed a moment after the real people moved. Elias tried not to stare. He failed. When he lifted his eyes, he caught the mirror at an odd angle. For half a heartbeat, the reflection behind him did not match the saloon wall. It showed a dark stretch of open sky, filled with stars, sharp, bright stars, like it was deep night instead of dusk. Then it snapped back to normal. Elias' spoon paused halfway to his mouth. His skin went cold. He looked around. No one reacted. Silas kept wiping the bar. Myra sat at a table with papers, calm as stone. The others drank and ate and talked softly. Elias forced himself to finish the stew. He told himself it was hunger, heat, and tired eyes. The desert could play tricks. A man could see anything when his mind was stretched thin. But the mirror felt like a stare on the back of his neck. When he was done, Silas pointed him toward a small room up the stairs. "One bed," Silas said. "No charge tonight. You look like you've had enough road." Elias hesitated. "Why help me?" Silas's expression didn't change, but his voice softened. "Because people still do that. Some places they still remember." Elias nodded and climbed the stairs. The boards didn't creak. That was another wrong thing. Oldwood always spoke when you stepped on it. His room was plain. Bed, small table, wash basin. A window facing the street. A lamp on the table glowing with that same calm light. Elias reached toward it, expecting heat. The lamp was cool. It didn't burn. It didn't even smell of oil. He sat on the edge of the bed, boots still on, and looked out the window. Night came fast. Not in a natural way, not like the slow fade he knew from open plains. It was as if someone pulled a curtain over the sky. One moment the horizon still held a trace of orange. The next moment it was gone, and then, for a breath, the whole town seemed to shift. Elias pressed closer to the glass. The street below looked the same, but the shadows were sharper. The glow of the lamps was brighter, like it fought against something heavy. In the distance, beyond the last buildings, the desert was darker than it should be. Not just unlit, but deep, like ink poured over sand. Elias' heart beat harder. He watched the sky. Stars appeared, too many, too bright, not the familiar patterns he knew. The Big Dipper wasn't where it should be. The North Star didn't seem to exist. The stars formed strange shapes, like they belonged to another world entirely. He heard a sound, faint through the window. Not a howl, not a scream. More like a low hum, a steady vibration that he felt in his teeth. It made the glass tremble in its frame. Elias stepped back from the window. Downstairs, the saloon piano kept playing. The notes floated up through the floorboards as if the building itself breathed music to stay calm. Elias stood still for a long time, trying to decide what to do. Leaving was one choice. But leaving meant riding into that ink-dark desert under unfamiliar stars, with a tired horse and less water than he needed. Another choice was to stay, ask questions, and risk answers he wasn't ready for. Elias had always been a man who fixed what others walked past. He didn't like broken things. He didn't like mysteries that sat loose and dangerous. Maybe that had been his problem his whole life. Maybe it would be his problem now. He went back downstairs. The saloon was quieter now. The crowd had thinned. A few people still sat at tables, their faces turned toward the windows as if listening for something outside. Sila's was behind the bar, hands resting flat on the wood. Mara stood near the mirror, watching her own reflection like she expected it to misbehave. When Elias reached the bottom step, Silas looked at him. Couldn't sleep, Silas said, not surprised. Elias shook his head. That sky isn't right. Mara's eyes flicked to him. You saw it. I'm not blind, Elias said. His voice stayed low, but a sharp edge slipped in. What is this place? Silas exhaled slowly. It's a shelter. A shelter from what? Silas didn't answer right away. He reached under the bar and pulled out a small object. It looked like a pocket watch at first, but the face had no numbers. It had a circle of tiny symbols and a needle that moved without ticking. Silas set it down. The needle trembled, then pointed toward the mirror behind the bar. Elias stared at it. That's not a watch. No, Silas agreed. It's a warning. Mara stepped closer. Red Hollow isn't on maps because it isn't always in the same place. Elias frowned. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to, Mara said. Her voice remained calm, but her hands were tight at her sides. The desert has rules, we have rules. And sometimes the rules overlap in strange ways. Elias looked at the mirror. It showed the saloon, but the edges seemed darker than before, as if the glass was a doorway covered by a thin skin. He remembered the stars he'd seen in it earlier. That mirror, it showed something else. Silas nodded once. It does. Elias swallowed. Is there someone behind it? Mara's expression turned careful. Not someone like you. Elias felt his mouth go dry. Then what? Silas leaned forward. Long ago, before you and I were even names, people came here with plans bigger than this town. They built something under the sand. They built it quiet. They built it hidden. And they built this place above it so it would be watched. Elias stared at him. That sounds like a fairy tale. Silas's eyes hardened, not with anger, but with weight. Fairy tales don't make the sky change. The piano's song slowed, stretching out a long note that seemed to tremble in the air. Elias turned toward it. For the first time, he saw something small move near the bench, like a shadow with shape. Not a person, not an animal, just a ripple, as if the air itself had hands. Then it was gone, and the keys continued, calm and steady. Elias' skin prickled. You're telling me there's a machine in this town playing music? Mara nodded. To keep people steady. To keep what steady? Elias asked. Silas tapped the strange watch. This town is a lid, the music is part of the latch. Elias took a slow breath. He wanted to laugh. He wanted to call them crazy. But the sky outside was wrong, and the lamps didn't burn, and the mirror sometimes held stars where faces should be. His mind reached for something solid, something he could do. Elias looked at Silas. If it's breaking, he said, why haven't you fixed it? Silas's mouth tightened. We do, every day, but some parts are old, older than the people who remember how they were made. Mara's eyes stayed on Elias. And then you walked in with tools on your belt. Elias felt a strange chill, not from fear, but from the feeling of being chosen without being asked. I'm just a drifter, he said. Mara shook her head. No, you're a man who doesn't walk away when something is wrong. Silas watched him carefully, as if testing him. We don't force anyone. If you want to leave at dawn, you can, if the town is still here at dawn. Elias glanced toward the window. Outside, the street lamps glowed like pale stars. Beyond the buildings, the desert darkness pressed close, thick and hungry, but silent. The hum in the air continued, low and steady like a distant engine. He looked back at the mirror. For a brief second, his reflection did not show his face. It showed a field of stars, bright and strange, and in the center of them, a single point that seemed to look back. Then his face returned. Elias didn't move for a moment. He could feel his heartbeat in his throat. He could feel the weight of the desert and the sky and whatever lay beneath the town. He set his hands on the bar, palms down, like he needed to anchor himself to something real. I'm not promising anything, he said, voice quiet but firm. But if something here is broken, I at least want to see it. Silas's shoulders loosened just a little. That's all we ask. Myra nodded once. Her eyes softened, but only for a moment. Then don't look away when the town shows you what it is. The piano played on, steady as a heartbeat. Outside, the sky held stars that did not belong to Elias' world, and the night felt like a door that had not fully closed. Elias woke to a stillness that felt heavier than the desert heat. The sun had barely reached the horizon, casting thin, pale streaks of light across the street below. Red Hollow seemed different in the morning. The shadows were softer, the lamps still glowing faintly, as if the town refused to fully wake. Elias rubbed his eyes and swung his legs off the bed, feeling the boards beneath him. They were as solid as ever, smooth and unyielding under his boots. He remembered last night, the mirror, the piano, the hum beneath the town. He remembered Silas's words about the lid, the latch, and the machine beneath the floorboards. The thought pulled him forward like a magnet. He had arrived in the town looking for nothing more than food, water, and rest. Now he wanted to see what lay under the saloon. Downstairs, the saloon was quiet except for the faint hum of the piano. The keys moved slowly, deliberately, as if the song itself had a purpose beyond music. Silas was behind the bar, polishing glasses with a careful rhythm. Mara stood near the mirror, her hands folded neatly in front of her. Both turned to watch him as he entered. "You're awake early," Silas said. His voice was calm, almost tired. "Or maybe the desert woke you." "I couldn't sleep," Elias admitted. He glanced at Mara. "I want to see what's under the saloon." Mara's eyes flickered, a hint of caution passing through her steady gaze. "It's not a place most people should see," she said. "Even us, we spend only part of our lives down there." Elias nodded. "I fix things, I find solutions. If something's broken under there, I can help." Silas didn't respond immediately. Instead, he moved toward a corner of the room, sliding aside a small rug. Beneath it was a hatch, its edges perfectly aligned with the floorboards. A faint, low hum vibrated from beneath. Elias knelt beside it, fingers brushing the smooth wood. The hum grew slightly stronger. "Be careful," Mara said, her voice gentle but firm. "It's old, it's delicate, and it's aware." Aware, the word made Elias pause. Machines didn't feel, or did they? He had worked with old equipment that seemed temperamental, almost as if it had memory. But aware? That was new. He nodded and pulled the hatch open. A set of narrow stairs led down into darkness. A cool breeze rose from below, carrying a scent that reminded him of wet stone and metal warmed by the sun. Elias grabbed a lantern from the wall and lit it. The soft glow illuminated the stairwell, showing the edges of the steps worn smooth by decades of use. "Go slowly," Silas warned from above. "One step at a time." Elias descended, the hum growing louder, vibrating through the soles of his boots. When he reached the bottom, he found himself in a tunnel carved into the earth. The walls were lined with metal panels, engraved with symbols he didn't recognize. Tiny lights flickered along the edges, casting shadows that danced like ghosts. "This is incredible," Elias whispered, running his hand along the panels. The metal was cool, almost alive under his touch. "How old is this place?" Myra stepped beside him, her lantern steady. "Older than anyone remembers. It was built before Red Hollow became what it is now, long before the desert took over." Elias frowned. "Before the desert." "That's impossible." Myra shook her head. "Not impossible, just forgotten. Humanity built many things that the desert swallowed. Only a few survived, hidden under towns like this one." They walked deeper into the tunnel, the hum growing stronger, more complex. Elias noticed that the panels pulsed gently, not with electricity, but with something that felt organic. Alive. He stopped at a section where the panels bent outward slightly. Inside was a machine, enormous and intricate. Gears and pistons moved silently, turning in impossible patterns. Pipes and tubes wove through the structure like veins, carrying something Elias couldn't identify. "What is it?" he asked, awe in his voice. Mara's expression was serious. "It's the heart of the town. The pulse of Red Hollow. It keeps the town in place, keeps it hidden, and monitors the gateway." "The gateway?" Elias repeated. Mara nodded. "Beneath the desert, under the rocks and sand, lies a doorway. We don't know what it leads to. We only know that if it opens without control, the town, and possibly more, could vanish." Elias swallowed. He had seen strange things before, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. "And the piano?" he asked. "That's part of the machine," Mara said. "The music stabilizes it. The sound vibrates through the town, aligning the energies. Without it, things could go wrong." Elias nodded slowly, taking it all in. He had worked with machines before, machines that were temperamental, even dangerous. But this was something else entirely. Something that required not just skill, but understanding. He knelt beside a panel, studying the intricate gears. "If I could, maybe adjust this part here, it might increase efficiency, reduce strain." Mara watched him closely. "Do it carefully. One wrong move and the town will feel it." Elias worked. His fingers moved over the panels, twisting knobs and tightening bolts. The machine responded subtly, humming smoother, pulsing steadier. He felt a sense of connection, as if the machine recognized his intent, his care. Hours passed, though it didn't feel like it. The hum grew louder, stronger, vibrating through the tunnel, the saloon above, and even into the desert beyond. Elias realized the machine was communicating, not with words, but with vibrations, pulses, and music. Mara guided him to another section, where a series of tubes led into the ground. "This monitors the gateway," she said. "Sensors, if you want to call them that. They can detect changes in energy in space itself. It's why the town exists where it does. It's positioned to keep the gateway stable." Elias leaned closer to the tubes, fascinated. "And the gateway, what is it?" Mara hesitated. "We don't know for certain. Something came before us, something we can't see. The gateway is a window to the stars, to places humanity has never touched. Our ancestors built this machine to watch it, to keep it from changing the world without warning." Elias thought of the mirror, the sky outside, the stars that didn't belong. "So, the town exists to protect people from what's out there," Mara nodded. "Or to protect what's out there from us. Sometimes it's hard to tell which." Elias stood and stretched. "And this has worked for how long?" "Centuries," Mara said quietly. "Long enough that people forgot the truth." He looked around at the machine, the panels, the humming tubes. "Why me?" he asked. "Why now?" Mara's eyes softened. "Because you don't walk away. You see what's broken and try to fix it. Most people don't. Most people leave things as they are, afraid of what they don't understand." Elias felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had wandered alone for years, moving from town to town, fixing what could be fixed, often ignored. Here he mattered. Here his skill wasn't just useful, it was vital. He turned back to the machine, examining every panel, every gear. The more he saw, the more he understood. This was more than a town. It was a living memory of humanity's ambition, ingenuity, and care. The kind of work humans could do when they refused to be forgotten. Hours passed. The sun rose higher, casting light into the tunnel through small cracks, though the town above remained bathed in gentle glow. Elias adjusted more panels, aligning gears, fine-tuning the pulsing tubes. Each adjustment sent vibrations through the floorboards, through the saloon, through the desert itself. He could feel the town responding, steadying, awakening. "Good," Mara said, finally breaking the silence. "The machine likes your touch, it recognizes care." Elias smiled faintly. "It feels alive." Mara nodded. "It is, in a way, it remembers what humans can do." A soft vibration ran up the tunnel floor, stronger than before. Elias looked at Mara. "The gateway?" Mara's face grew serious. "Something approaches, something we haven't seen before, but the machine is ready thanks to you." Elias felt a mixture of pride and fear. He had never thought of his skills in terms of the fate of an entire town, or what lay beyond it. Yet here he was, standing in the heart of something ancient, something alive, something bigger than himself. The hum grew louder, vibrating through every inch of the tunnel, the saloon, the desert, and perhaps even the sky above. Elias listened, understanding that this machine, this town, this strange hidden world was alive because humans had made it so. And now, because he had touched it, it had a new rhythm, a new pulse. Outside, the sky flickered. Stars blinked, shifting into patterns that Elias didn't recognize. Shapes moved in the darkness beyond the horizon, distant and silent, watching. And yet the town hummed stronger, the music from the piano floating up through the floorboards, steady and bright. Elias took a deep breath. The desert had never felt less empty. Red Hollow was alive, and he understood for the first time that humanity's reach wasn't limited to what they could touch, build, or see. Their care, their persistence, their refusal to walk away, it had shaped worlds, machines, and now the stars themselves. And as he worked, tuning, fixing, guiding, Elias Mercer realized that he had become part of that story. A story that was just beginning. Elias had never felt the night hum like this before. Down in the tunnels beneath the saloon, the machine thrummed with steady rhythm, its energy pulsing through the metal panels and tubes. The vibrations traveled through the floorboards above, through the lamps, and into the desert itself. It was as if Red Hollow had taken a deep breath and exhaled into the world. Mara moved beside him, her lantern casting a soft glow on the intricate machinery. "It's responding," she said quietly. "The gateway is aware." Elias paused, brushing his hand over a panel. "Aware." "How can a gateway be aware?" Mara shrugged. "I don't know if it is aware like we are, but it senses energy, thought, presence, and right now it senses us. And you," he frowned, "me." You fixed the heart, she said. The machine listens to intent to care. When you touched it, it recognized something it had not seen in centuries, a human willing to understand, willing to guide. That resonates with the gateway. Elias stepped back. Resonates how? Mara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she pointed to a set of tubes that branched from the machine toward a distant chamber. Through the faint light, he could see shimmering energy inside the tubes, moving in waves like water frozen mid-flow. Watch, she whispered. Elias leaned closer. The hum grew louder, a low vibration that rattled the teeth in his jaw and echoed in his chest. He noticed a pattern forming in the energy, pulses that repeated, rising and falling like the rhythm of a heartbeat. And then the pulses shifted, faster, stronger. A sequence emerged, almost as if the gateway was sending a message through the machine, through the town, through him. Mara's eyes shone. It's communicating, we don't know what it wants, but it responds to the town, to us. You gave it a reason to notice. Elias swallowed hard. So it's listening because I fixed it. Yes, Mara said. Because of you? The thought made him uneasy. He had never been part of something so big. Usually his work mattered to one person or maybe a small town. Never to a machine that spoke to a doorway beyond the world, beyond time. Can it understand? Elias asked, voice barely audible over the hum. Mara tilted her head. Maybe it doesn't understand humans like we understand each other, but it can perceive intent, care, persistence. It reacts to that. Elias looked around the chamber, his eyes tracing the endless network of gears, pipes, and panels. Then, if we show it what humans can do, maybe it will trust us. Mara nodded slowly. Perhaps that's the idea. The gateway has seen countless civilizations come and go. Most failed because they sought only to dominate or destroy. Humans, this town, this machine, reminds it that we can create without greed, persist without harm. That's rare. He thought of the piano above, its music floating through the floorboards. He thought of the lamps glowing steadily, the townsfolk moving quietly in their routines. He realized the gateway didn't need humans to conquer it. It needed humans to exist as they were, curious, persistent, creative. A sudden shift in the energy made Elias step back. The hum intensified, vibrating not just the tunnel but the air itself. Shapes of light began to appear in the far chamber, faint and shimmering like mist caught in a beam of sunlight. They moved slowly, gracefully, weaving in patterns he couldn't predict. It's sending something, Mara said. A response, look. Elias stared. The lights coalesced, forming shapes that were both familiar and alien. Some resembled the stars he had seen through the Saloon mirror, others like geometric patterns beyond human comprehension. The shapes pulsed in rhythm with the machine, as if dancing to a song only they could hear. Is it friendly? He asked. Mara smiled faintly. I don't think it's hostile, it's curious, that's a start. Elias took a deep breath. Curious, I can work with that. He stepped forward, touching one of the energy tubes. A warmth spread through his fingers, not heat, but a feeling of connection. The machine pulsed stronger in response, and the lights in the distant chamber grew brighter, shifting faster, almost like they were breathing. It wants to learn, Mara whispered. It recognizes the human mind, your mind, that's why you feel it like this. Elias closed his eyes for a moment. He could feel it, something vast, ancient, waiting. Something that had existed before humans, before Red Hollow, and yet had paused to notice them now. What do we do? He asked. Show it who we are, Mara said simply. Show it the part of humanity that refuses to be erased, that persists, that cares, that dreams. Elias opened his eyes. Dreams, right, that's easy. He moved to another panel, twisting knobs and adjusting the flow of energy. The hum changed, a softer vibration now melodic, almost like the piano above. The lights in the chamber began to shift in patterns that resembled constellations, like the night sky rearranging itself to tell a story. It's responding to the rhythm, Mara said, to the pattern, to the human touch. Elias worked faster now, guided not just by skill but by intuition. Every adjustment sent ripples through the machine, through the town, into the desert. The gateway's lights pulsed faster, brighter, weaving intricate shapes and patterns. He realized they were communicating, not with words, but with movement, with rhythm, with intent. The energy began to form a spiral, slowly expanding outward. Elias could feel it in his chest, in his bones. The gateway was opening, not fully, but enough to show that it acknowledged their presence. It's opening, he breathed. Mara's eyes shone. It's responding to trust, to care. You've done more than fix a machine. You've given the gateway reason to notice humans. Elias felt a surge of pride and fear. The gateway was vast, ancient, and beyond comprehension. Yet here it was, pausing to recognize them, not with weapons, not with power, but with persistence and understanding. Above, in the saloon, the piano continued to play. Its notes seemed to float through the air, through the walls, and into the energy chamber. Elias realized the piano was more than music. It was a language, a signal, a bridge. "Music," he said softly. "It's speaking to it through music." Mara nodded. "Always has." The heartbeat of the town, the music, the rhythm of human persistence, it's what keeps the gateway steady. Elias smiled faintly. "Then let's give it more. Let's show it everything humans can do without harming anyone, without fear, without greed." He moved to a panel that controlled the flow of energy through the tubes. With careful adjustments, he increased the rhythm, aligning it with the melody of the piano above. The lights in the distant chamber pulsed faster, brighter, weaving patterns that now seemed almost like letters, almost like words, but not in any language he knew. "They're trying to communicate," Mara said, "or at least respond in the only way they can with what they sense." Elias felt a shiver of wonder. Humans had reached the stars in their dreams, in stories, in imagination, and now a gateway far beyond their world was learning from them, watching them, recognizing them. Hours passed, though time seemed different in the tunnels. The hum, the lights, the pulse of the machine all merged into a steady, living rhythm. Elias understood in a way he could not explain that Red Hollow was not just a town. It was a statement, a proof, a reminder. Humanity existed not for conquest, not for destruction, but for care, persistence, creativity, and connection. He worked without pause, guided by instinct, guided by the knowledge that the gateway was listening. The energy spirals grew, expanded, weaving patterns that reminded him of stars, of constellations, of maps humans had once drawn to guide themselves through the night. And then, a new sensation. A presence, not threatening, not loud, but undeniable. Something vast, stretching beyond the desert, beyond the sky, beyond human imagination. It pulsed in rhythm with the machine, with the piano, with Elias' own heartbeat. "It's acknowledging us," Mara whispered. Elias' hands froze on the panel. He felt a connection, fragile but real. The gateway was not just observing, it was learning, responding, understanding in its own way. "Elias," Mara said softly, "we are not alone in this universe. The gateway knows that now. Because of you, because of the town, because of everything we do to care for it." He swallowed, feeling the weight of her words. "Then, what next?" Mara smiled faintly. "We keep showing it who we are. We show it that humans can be persistent, caring, creative. That we don't always destroy, that we dream." Elias nodded, determination growing in him. He looked around the chamber, at the intricate machinery, at the glowing tubes, at the lights weaving their alien patterns. He felt small, yet infinitely important. Above, the piano's melody grew, rising in harmony with the gateway's energy. Elias realized something powerful. Humans did not need weapons to matter in the universe. They needed courage, creativity, persistence, and care. And for the first time, he understood that humanity's reach extended far beyond the desert, far beyond Red Hollow, far beyond the stars themselves. The gateway pulsed brighter, expanding outward. Elias felt it in his chest, a warmth spreading through his body. He knew without doubt that they had been noticed, and that humanity had left its mark, not through power, but through heart. And as the tunnel thrummed, as the lights danced, as the piano played, Elias Mercer realized that the story of humans was no longer limited to the Earth. It was a story being told across the universe, one heartbeat at a time. And this story was only beginning. Elias had not slept since he had descended into the tunnels. He did not feel tired, though his body ached from hours of work and concentration. The hum of the machine, the pulse of the energy, the dancing lights from the gateway, it all kept him alert, awake in a way that felt alive. Myra stayed by his side, silent but watchful, as though she could sense every thought passing through his mind. Above them, the saloon continued its quiet rhythm. The piano played, its melody floating up through the floorboards, intertwining with the machine's vibrations. Outside, the desert was calm, though the stars beyond the horizon flickered in patterns that Elias could not recognize. The gateway was awake, and it was watching. "We've done enough to get its attention," Mara said softly. "Now we have to show it something more, something it can understand beyond pulses and lights." Elias looked at her, puzzled. "What do you mean?" She smiled faintly. It watches energy, movement, intention, but it does not know humans fully, not yet. It does not know our persistence, our creativity, our capacity to care. That is what we have to show it. He nodded slowly. The idea seemed simple, yet immense. How do you teach a doorway in the desert, a gateway beyond the stars, what it means to be human? Mara gestured to the machine. Everything here is connected. The piano, the panels, the tubes, they are all part of the language, but humans are more than machines. We have stories. We have music, yes, but also laughter, curiosity, imagination. We have courage that does not depend on strength. That is what it must see. Elias swallowed. And we show it how? Mara's eyes glimmered. We live, we act, we create, and we let it witness us. He took a deep breath and stepped back from the panels, letting his hands rest at his sides. Above, the piano's melody shifted slightly, as if sensing his intention. Outside, the desert wind stirred faintly, carrying a whisper of dust across the horizon. The gateway's lights pulsed in rhythm with the machine, responding to the town, to him, to the intention of human persistence. Elias moved toward the ladder leading to the floor above. Mara followed, her lantern guiding the way. They climbed in silence, emerging into the saloon where the townsfolk moved about their morning routines. They washed dishes, swept floors, fed horses, tended small gardens. Everything was ordinary, quiet, almost humble, but Elias understood that this ordinary life was extraordinary in its purpose. He looked around. The townsfolk did not notice him, or perhaps they did, but they did not act differently. Their calm, steady movements were part of the rhythm, part of the message that humans could be persistent, gentle, and creative at once. Elias stepped forward. He raised his hands slightly, as if conducting the room. The piano's melody shifted in response, and the machines beneath hummed louder, stronger. Outside, the faint glow of the lamps pulsed in harmony. He felt a thrill pass through him, a sense of connection he had never known. "Watch," Mara said softly. She moved among the townsfolk, encouraging them to participate in small ways. One man adjusted the piano stool, another straightened a chair, a child began humming along with the tune. The town became an orchestra of care, of gentle precision, of creativity expressed in quiet acts. The gateway responded. Its lights grew brighter, spiraling outward in complex patterns that seemed almost like a language. Elias realized that every movement, every note, every careful action was being observed, interpreted, acknowledged. "It sees us," he whispered. "It understands a little." Mara nodded. "More than a little, it recognizes intent, persistence, care. And it is learning that humans are more than chaos and noise. We can be steady, we can create, we can endure." Elias walked to the mirror behind the bar, the same mirror that had first shown him stars where his reflection should have been. The stars were back, brighter than ever, forming constellations he did not know. But they moved differently now, not in random flickers, but in patterns that responded to the saloon's activity. He reached out, touching the glass lightly, feeling warmth where there should have been cold. The piano's melody rose in harmony with the lights. Elias realized it was a language he understood instinctively: rhythm, persistence, order, and care. The gateway was not just watching, they were communicating. He took a deep breath. "We need to do more," he said. "We need to show it what humans can do beyond this town." Mara's eyes widened slightly. "Do you mean expand?" "Yes," he said. "We've shown it the town, the machines. The music, but humans are more than one place, more than one routine. We create, we explore, we dream. We leave marks that matter across space. That's the part it needs to know." She nodded. "Then we prepare carefully." Elias moved to the machine's main control panel. He adjusted the flow of energy, increasing the pulses in harmony with the piano above. The lights in the distant chamber brightened, weaving spirals and arcs that expanded outward. The gateway was opening wider now, responding not just to Red Hollow, but to the intention behind human effort. Above, the townsfolk noticed small changes. Windows that had been closed all morning opened, letting in sunlight. Birds that had been silent began to chirp. Even the desert beyond the saloon seemed to respond, the wind carrying patterns of dust and sand that echoed the spirals of energy below. Elias felt a surge of connection. This was no longer just about the town or the machine. This was about humanity itself, its reach, its persistence, its capacity to touch even the stars. Mara stepped beside him, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. "It's noticing our intent, not just the town, not just the machine. It senses what humans can do when we care, when we persist, when we create without harming." Elias nodded, feeling the truth of her words. He realized that for centuries, humans had left traces of themselves across the world, stories, inventions, art, music, and acts of care. Red Hollow and its hidden machine were just one piece of that legacy. But now, in this desert under this sky, it mattered more than ever. He thought of the first time he had seen the stars in the mirror, the alien constellations, the faint presence that had watched him. The gateway was not hostile, not destructive. It was curious, learning, responding. And humans, through care and persistence, could reach it, could teach it, could leave a mark. The townsfolk moved in harmony, each action precise but full of life. They washed dishes, tended horses, prepared meals, and played music, all ordinary acts, yet now extraordinary in meaning. Elias realized that the gateway was seeing the human heart in motion, not weapons, not power, but care, creativity, and persistence. The lights in the distant chamber grew brighter, forming shapes that resembled constellations, and then patterns like letters, though not in any human language. Elias reached out, adjusting the machine's panels in harmony with the piano. The gateway pulsed faster, more vibrant, as if responding to the rhythm of human life itself. "It understands," Mara whispered, "not fully but enough to recognize the story." Elias felt a thrill. For centuries, humans had wandered, built, dreamed, and created. Now a gateway beyond the stars was learning their story. Not through force, not through destruction, but through persistence, care, and imagination. He moved to the mirror again. The stars within it now formed patterns that mirrored the town's activity. Every note of the piano, every careful action of a townsfolk, every adjustment he made to the machine sent ripples through the constellations. Elias smiled. "We're showing it who humans are," Mara nodded, "and that is enough for now." But the gateway pulsed stronger, brighter, and the lights expanded, weaving patterns across the desert and into the horizon. Elias felt the hum of the machine in his chest, in his bones. He understood that Red Hollow was no longer just a hidden town. It was a message, a statement, a bridge between humanity and the universe. And as the piano played, as the lights danced, as the hum of the machine thrummed through the desert, Elias realized something profound. Humans did not need to dominate or destroy to matter. They needed to persist, to create, to care, and to leave traces of their heart across the world. The gateway pulsed again, a vast, rhythmic acknowledgement. Elias felt it not with his eyes but with his whole being. It was not complete understanding. It was curiosity, recognition, learning, and that was enough. Above in the saloon, the townsfolk moved with calm determination, unaware of the vast cosmic witness watching them. And Elias Mercer knew that the story of humans, of care, persistence, and creativity, was being told beyond the stars. Elias woke before sunrise, the desert air still cool and calm outside the saloon. The town of Red Hollow was quiet, the soft glow of the lamps casting long, gentle shadows across the street. The hum from the tunnels beneath the saloon still vibrated faintly, but it was steadier now, more assured, like a heartbeat confident in its rhythm. He stepped out of his room and descended the stairs. Mara was already waiting by the piano, her hands lightly brushing the keys. The melody flowed softly, a tune that seemed to carry the pulse of the town, the machine beneath it, and the energy spiraling from the gateway. Elias realized that today would be different. The gateway had been awakened, curious, observing humanity. Today they would show it what humans could do when they dared to care, persist, and create. Silas appeared behind the bar, nodding to Elias. "It's ready," he said quietly. "The town is ready, and the gateway, well, it waits to see us fully." Elias took a deep breath. "We'll do this together, right?" Mara's smile was calm, steady, but filled with pride. "Together." He moved to the door and stepped outside. The desert was vast, silent, and endless. The stars were still visible, strange and bright, but no longer threatening. They seemed to pulse with the rhythm of the machine, reflecting the melody from the piano. Elias felt the connection again, the subtle awareness that the gateway was watching, sensing, learning. He turned to the townsfolk, who had gathered quietly in the street. Men and women, children and elders, all moved with a calm precision, their ordinary tasks imbued with extraordinary meaning. They fed the animals, tended the plants, polished the windows, swept the streets, and played instruments. Each action was deliberate, careful, and gentle. Elias raised his hands slightly, guiding the flow of the town's energy, like a conductor leading an orchestra. The piano's melody rose, harmonizing with the rhythm of the machine below. Outside, the desert seemed to respond. Dust swirled gently, lifted by a soft wind that carried the pulse of the town outward. "It sees us," Mara whispered, standing beside him. "The gateway sees everything, feels everything we show it." Elias nodded, focusing on the town as a whole. The gateway had witnessed humans as builders, wanderers, and dreamers. Now it would see humans as creators of harmony, as a species capable of beauty without harm, persistence without destruction, care without expectation. He directed the townsfolk to move in synchrony with the melody, creating patterns that extended beyond the town itself. Children ran in circles, leaving trails in the sand that glowed faintly with energy from the machine. Adults moved in careful lines, arranging objects in small gardens, weaving geometric patterns in the dust and sand. The combined effect was mesmerizing, a dance of life, order, and creativity. The gateway pulsed in response, the lights spinning faster, brighter, forming shapes that were both alien and familiar. The constellations shifted, reflecting the patterns of the town below. Elias felt the hum of the machine and the pulse of the desert merge with the rhythm of the stars. "This is it," he whispered. "This is what it needs to see, humanity at its best." Mara nodded. "And it recognizes that, look." The lights above the desert expanded, forming spirals, arcs, and loops that mirrored the town's patterns. Elias saw shapes that reminded him of constellations, maps, and even simple symbols of human connection: hands, hearts, circles. The gateway was not just observing, it was learning, responding, and reflecting the essence of humans. Elias raised his hands higher, guiding the energy with intent. The townsfolk moved with perfect harmony, their actions deliberate, yet full of life. The piano's melody intertwined with the hum of the machine, creating a song that resonated through the desert and into the distant sky. The gateway pulsed stronger, brighter, almost as if it were breathing. Elias realized that humanity was not just being seen, it was being understood in a new way, not through force or fear, but through the quiet, persistent actions of ordinary people. "Do you feel it?" Mara asked. "The connection?" Elias closed his eyes for a moment. He felt it in his chest, in his bones, in the rhythm of his heartbeat. The gateway's awareness, the machine's pulse, the town's harmony, it all converged into a single, powerful force. Humanity's essence, distilled into care, creativity, and persistence, was reaching across the universe. Above, the sky shifted. The alien constellations began to mirror the town's patterns exactly, as if copying the design of human effort. Elias saw a spiral of stars above the desert, reflecting the children's dance in the sand. Lines of light-traced shapes that mirrored the adults' work, and symbols of connection glowed among the stars. "It's learning," he whispered. "It's understanding us." Mara smiled, her eyes glimmering with quiet pride. "And it will remember. Long after we are gone, the gateway will carry this story of humanity." Elias felt a surge of awe. For centuries, humans had struggled, fought, and dreamed. They had built cities, explored lands, and created stories. Now, beyond the stars, in a gateway hidden under the desert, humanity's essence was being acknowledged, respected, and remembered. The piano's melody reached a crescendo, joined by the hum of the machine and the patterns of the town. Elias felt a warmth spread through him, a sensation of completion and hope. The gateway pulsed in perfect harmony with Red Hollow, a cosmic acknowledgement of human persistence, creativity, and care. He looked at the townsfolk. They moved with quiet joy, unaware of the full magnitude of their impact. They were ordinary people performing ordinary tasks, yet in their actions lay extraordinary significance. Humanity had not conquered, it had not destroyed, it had not demanded recognition. It had simply persisted, cared, and created. The gateway's lights expanded further, reaching beyond the desert, reflecting across the stars. Elias could see faint echoes of the patterns in the distant sky, shimmering constellations rearranging themselves to mirror human creativity. The gateway was not just watching, it was participating, responding, learning from the quiet harmony of Red Hollow. "This is it," Mara said, her voice full of reverence. "This is humanity's message, not with weapons, not with power, but with heart, persistence, and imagination." Elias felt a tear run down his cheek, though he did not move to wipe it away. He understood in that moment that the story of humanity had reached beyond Earth, beyond the desert, beyond time itself. The gateway pulsed one final time, a bright, radiant acknowledgement. The lights formed a spiral, expanding outward and upward, a cosmic signature of human ingenuity and care. The town below hummed in perfect harmony, the piano's melody flowing through the floorboards and into the desert. Elias stepped forward, raising his hands one last time. "We are here," he said softly. "We endure, we create, we care, and we will continue." The gateway responded with a shimmer of light that spread across the desert and into the sky. Elias felt the pulse of the machine, the rhythm of the town, and the resonance of the stars merge into a single harmonious wave. Humanity had left its mark, not through conquest, but through presence, creativity, and care. Above, the piano played its final note, a melody that lingered in the air like a promise. The townsfolk moved back to their tasks, unaware of the cosmic witness that now carried their story across the universe. Elias watched them, feeling both humility and pride. Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. "This is what we came to show," she said. "This is what it means to persist, to create, and to care. Humanity matters because of that, not because of power." Elias nodded. "And it will remember us." "It will," Mara said. "Not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as a species that dared to show heart, persistence, and imagination across the universe." The desert was calm now. The hum of the machine had settled into a steady rhythm, the lamps glowed softly, and the stars above mirrored the patterns of human effort. Red Hollow had fulfilled its purpose. It had awakened the gateway, shown humanity's essence, and left a mark that would endure beyond time and space. Elias felt a quiet satisfaction. He had come to Red Hollow seeking nothing more than rest and water. Instead, he had become part of something vast, something eternal, something that connected humans to the stars themselves. The townsfolk went about their day, tending horses, sweeping streets, preparing meals, and playing music. Their ordinary actions now carried extraordinary significance, a message that would resonate across the universe. Elias stood in the center of the street, looking up at the sky. The alien constellations shimmered with patterns that mirrored human care and creativity. He understood fully that humanity's story had reached far beyond the desert, far beyond Red Hollow, far beyond Earth. And for the first time in his life, he felt the true weight of what it meant to be human, not just to survive, but to create, to persist, and to leave a mark that mattered. The gateway pulsed once more, a final acknowledgement of human ingenuity and care. Elias Mercer knew that Red Hollow, the town, the machine, the piano, and the townsfolk had achieved something that would endure. Humanity had shown the universe its heart. And the stars, in return, shone a little brighter, carrying that story across the cosmos, a tale of persistence, creativity, and care that would never be forgotten. The town of Red Hollow remained quiet, ordinary, humble, yet it had done the extraordinary. Elias felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of completion and hope, knowing that humanity had left its mark on the universe, not through force, not through destruction, but through heart, creativity, and persistence. He looked once more at Mara, Silas, and the townsfolk and smiled. The story was not over, but it had reached a new beginning. Humanity had been seen. Humanity had been remembered. And in that moment, Elias Mercer knew, without doubt, that humans could endure anything, create anything, and inspire the universe itself. The piano played softly, the lights pulsed, the desert remained still, and Red Hollow stood as a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit.